Okay, now we're official and we're being recorded so that folks that weren't able to make this live will have a chance to tune in later on. Okay, it's a little bit, I think everybody here is probably already familiar with the Professional Association for SQL Server, also known as PASS, and this is the virtual chapter, formerly known as Special Interest Groups for Professional Development. PASS, for those folks who aren't familiar, obviously it's a international scope organization focusing on SQL Server, providing a lot of different training. There's free training available in the 24 hours of PASS, which the next event coming up is March 15th and 16th. And then there's SQL Saturdays, which are also local and free training. Those are run different times throughout the year in your area. The SQL Rally is a new event coming up in Orlando on May 11th and 13th. And the current price until April 12th is $299 for the two-day training event there. And then the North American Summit is coming up in the fall, October 12th through 14th. I think the current price is $11.95 if you register now. And then I wasn't able to find details on the European Conference. Joe, do you by any chance happen to know about the European Conference this year? I could only find the details about last year's event.
I don't have that.
All right. Well,
I don't know.
Any information, you get additional details, people can go out to the PASS website itself, sqlpass.org. Just a couple housekeeping things about for our meeting. First of all, everybody should be able to hear us now coming through their speakers, through their computer headsets or whatever. Sound should be coming through. If it's not, well, you can't hear me tell you this, but the Q&A menu would be the best way for folks to contact us. Throughout the meeting, you can use the Q&A menu to post questions for our speaker, and Joe will address those either as he goes through the time or at the end. And again, just a reminder for folks, this is being recorded for later viewing for those folks that couldn't join us live. All right, and just a little bit for those folks who may not know Joe. Joe's the Chief Operating Manager for Web Tech Solutions in Nashville. There's his website and blog information. You can get on there and read about his latest exploits with his Kindle and iPad and all the fun toys, as well as great write-ups on his experiences in consulting and SQL Server. Joe has many certifications, was again renewed this year as a SQL Server MVP. He's also the author of The Rational Guide to IT Consulting and several other books. He's been a speaker for PASS at the Summit and European Conference and a number of other conferences, and was former member of the board of directors for PASS, spending 6 years on the board, culminating in the role of the Executive Vice President of Finance. That's actually the time when I first met Joe, was while he was on the board, and got to know him and developed friendship over the years. Keep renewing contact at the Summit each year. So welcome, Joe. We're glad to have you here, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Let's see. Can you flip back over to...
Yeah, it should be. Let me see here. There we go. It should be coming up.
There we go. Can everyone see my slide deck now?
Yep, you're on.
Mark, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
I'm going to mute myself here to provide less background noise, but if you need anything, Joe, just speak up.
Fantastic. All right. Well, first of all, thanks everyone for carving some time out of your day. I know how precious the every hour of the day can be, particularly when we're in the IT world. So I understand that it is not easy to carve out some time. So I appreciate you guys making the time to do that for this, and hopefully we'll make it worth your while. The purpose of today is to share and discuss some of the ways and best practices that we can go from a position of a full-time job in the IT industry into a career in consulting in the IT industry, or for that matter, any other industry, but I'm much more familiar with the IT world since that's where I've spent my career. And so by the end of today's session, 45, 50 minutes from now, what you will have learned is, and what we will have discussed is the different types of hats, the many hats that you must wear as an IT consultant. It's not simply becoming an IT professional and spending 40 to 50 to 60 hours a week working for someone else. There are a number of different aspects and facets to becoming an IT consultant that you should be aware of ahead of time as you make this transition. We'll talk about some of the requirements, some of the logistics or steps that you'll need to take as you begin forming your business. We'll define a strategy that will help you make the transition from being a full-time employee of somebody to a full-time career in consulting with a minimum amount of risk. We want to minimize our exposure, if at all possible, during the transition. And then finally, we'll talk about some things that I've learned over the years, some best practices for sales, for marketing, for working with clients, things like that. So agenda is fairly straightforward, parallels our purpose for this call. We'll talk about consulting and what it is at the beginning, so we make sure we're all on the same page. Then we'll talk about how we can become a consultant. We'll talk about the multi-step approach and actually how we can work with recruiters in the IT industry. We'll then talk about some of the facets or ways in which we can create an image for ourselves, how we can view our role in the marketing and sales arena, and some other benefits of just getting to know people. And finally, we'll wrap up with some tips and tricks. So as Mark mentioned, I've been working in the IT industry since 1993. And shortly after that, I actually founded Webb Tech Solutions. So I've been a consultant with my own business since 1996. Prior to that, I actually spent a couple of years as a consultant for someone else and helped to build that company from the ground up. I was the very first employee of a consultant, and for the next 2 years spent that time helping him to build up a consulting practice. And then I took the notion that if I can help him build a successful consulting practice, then I could do it for myself. And so founded Webb Tech Solutions back then, and still can provide consulting, mentoring, and technical training to different organizations. So when we talk about a consultant, let's first begin by what do we mean by the word consultant? Some people refer to a consultant as a contractor, someone who essentially is a temporary employee for an organization. You work 40 hours a week for them, but you're not technically on their payroll. And that's a valid use of the word consultant. Matter of fact, all these are. But we're going to narrow it down just a little bit. We're not really going to be talking about a salesperson. I don't know if you notice when you go to buy a new vehicle or something, you may actually be introduced to a, quote, sales consultant or something like that. We're not talking about those kind of things. We're looking for someone who offers highly specialized skills or particularly insightful knowledge of an industry or technology to businesses. So for many of us, that may be we are particularly skilled in a technology like Microsoft SQL Server, or in application development or database design. But it could also be a consultant who is incredibly insightful or knowledgeable about a particular vertical market or a particular sector like healthcare. So as a consultant, when you're self-employed, really there are two sides of a coin, if you will, when you are that consultant. First of all, on one side, you are indeed a business owner. As that business owner, you act as the chief executive officer. You set vision for your organization. You set goals. You set plans for the next year, for the next 5 years. Where do you want to be in the coming months, weeks, years, and so forth? You're also the chief operating officer and the financial officer. So if you decide that you need a new laptop, you can go ahead and buy that laptop. You don't have to consult with anyone or put in a requisition form with anyone. You're responsible for sales. You're responsible for your own internal network. So if you work from a spare bedroom or a bonus room above your garage, you're the guy who has to set up the Wi-Fi to make sure that you can access your network from the luxury of your recliner by the fireplace. You're also your own desktop support person, your travel agent, you're the guy who's the janitor, you're all of that stuff, including the laborer or the consultant who is actually earning an income. But apart from your own business, you're also a resource for your client. And that could take many different forms. You may be a technical advisor or a trusted liaison for that client. When they have questions about technology, they want to come to you because you've established that relationship and they've trusted you. You may be a project leader so that you're managing a group of their employees or other consultants that they've hired to take them through some sort of project. You could be hired as a mentor to come in and just answer questions for them occasionally. Maybe a team member. Could be a firefighter, someone who comes in and resolves a pressing issue, spends 2 days with them, figures out why that SQL server is performing suboptimally. Number of different ways that you can be a resource and different types of engagements that you could have as a consultant. Now, as a business owner, you have a certain set of responsibilities to keep your business afloat. As a resource to your client, you've got a different set of responsibilities for them. And sometimes there's a bit of a competing interest between the two. For example, as a client resource, you want to maintain that good, close relationship with your client. You want to come in and you want them to trust you, you want them to like you, you want them to respect you, and so forth. As a business owner, you also need to maintain the integrity and stability of your own business. Well, at some point, you may have a client who is 30, 60, 90 days out of compliance on their invoices, so they haven't paid you for 90 days. As a client resource, you want to maintain that good, friendly working relationship with them. As a business owner, you're going to have to discuss the outstanding invoices with them. A lot of people don't like talking about money, but that's something you're going to have to do. So you're going to have to learn to balance your responsibilities to your organization and your responsibilities to your client's organization as well. So as you get into considering becoming an IT consultant, some things you need to actually think about for a while, and there are many more than this. These are the top 5 that came to my mind. I wrote about a number of these in a book on IT consulting that I did a number of years ago, kind of a question and answer type, or a survey, if you will, checklist that you can go down and consider as you begin pondering the idea of consulting. But some of the questions would be, how do you deal with uncertainty? When you're a consultant, you don't necessarily know where the next engagement is coming from. There may be some consultants who know what the next 12 months has in store for them. A lot of times, though, you don't. A lot of times there may be some uncertainty, and it may be difficult to plan more than 2 or 3 months in advance for your engagements. With some clients, part of your job is to plan your own obsolescence. So I come in to a client at times, and my job is to take them from a state of dependency on my services to a state of independency where they can stand on their own. And how you deal with that mentally or emotionally is going to weigh or factor into how well you do as a consultant. Can you plan your own obsolescence? Are you comfortable doing that? Some other things is, can you consider your ideas a work of art? And the analogy that I like to use in this is, if I may make this great, wonderful painting, or to the consultant or to the client, it will come into the form of an idea. I've listened to them. I've listened to their concerns. I've come up with a great solution. In my mind, this is a beautiful solution. And if I think of it as a work of art, and I hold that solution right up in front of me, just right in front of my chest, and I say, look how great this is. If they start shooting holes into it, I'm going to get hit, and it's going to hurt. But if we can think of our solutions as a work of art, and I hold it off to the side, much like, say, a bullfighter holds the cape off to the side, if they start shooting holes in this idea, I'm not going to get hurt. I simply put down that idea and pick up another idea and begin working from there. Just because I believe this to be a tremendous, well-conceived solution to their problem, they may not view it that way, and that's okay. Some other considerations. Can you keep your work and home lives in balance? That's a big challenge for a lot of people, even who have a full-time job. It's very easy to get up on a Saturday morning, check the email to see if somebody had replied to your question on Friday afternoon, and the next thing you know, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon Saturday, and you haven't even, you're still in your pajamas, you haven't eaten breakfast or lunch because you've spent the day working, and that was not your intention. Happens very, very easily, so you have to make sure you can draw some clear lines in your home, your private life, and your client life, and your work life. And we don't work in a vacuum, and so can we count on family support? If you have a wife or a husband with kids, are they going to be there for you and support you as you go through this? And this will depend somewhat on their level of risk aversion as well. So as you start setting up shop, you've considered whether or not you want to do this. You begin setting up shop. A number of different organizational types that you can, from which you can choose. Sole proprietorship is essentially you as an individual, and that's something that I would really discourage you from considering, because essentially you and the business then become one. And if something happens and you get sued, your personal assets are not off limits to the company who sues you. So you want to have some way to shield your assets from your personal assets from anyone who may be litigious. So a couple of ways to do that. One would be an LLC, or a limited liability company. Another one is an S corp, which is a traditional incorporated company. Either one of those I found, depending on your state, they have different requirements, but either one of those are typically are fine. In some states, the LLC is a little easier and less expensive to set up. In other states, the S corp is just as easy and just as inexpensive. So it's going to vary by state. So you'll want to check that information out on your website, and maybe talk to your Secretary of State's office about it. Both of those do provide limited liability, so your personal assets are not at stake should something go wrong. A C corp is a giant corporation like Microsoft or Oracle or something like that. You'll also need to investigate some regulations and taxes. Many areas have city, state, county, and federal taxes, and you want to be aware of that. If you are self-employed, you do have to pay income tax. There's no one withholding it, so you end up having to pay it yourself, typically quarterly, and you have to calculate how much you believe you'll make in the year. Use that information to calculate what your tax bracket will be, and then apply that percentage tax bracket to that quarter's revenue, estimated revenue, and then pay that on a quarterly basis. You'll definitely want to check out the IRS site for that information, or consult your accountant. Speaking of which, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you keep your personal and your business accounts separate. I would encourage you to get an accounting piece of software like QuickBooks or Peachtree or something like that, so that you can make sure that you track your receivables, track your invoices, track your cash receipts, and then be able to pay taxes and such from that. I also recommend you're going to have some months where you do a lot of billing and receive a lot of money. There will be other months when you have very little income coming in, and that's going to be a natural, perhaps even cyclical part of your business. What I encourage people to do when I talk with them is to pay yourself a salary just like you do when you're at work. So if there's a month where I have a particularly good income into my business, I pay myself the same salary as I do the month where I don't have much income at all coming in. So as we think about how we get into consulting then, let's look at some transitional steps that we can make. We'll first start with getting ready to make the leap. Then we'll talk about how we can start our business, how we can use the recruiters to help us in our transition, and then finally, finding your own clients directly. So to get ready, I've already talked about this a little bit in terms of your personality, but now we need to think about how we stack up and how we measure ourselves in terms of what the market is bearing and what the market needs and demands from IT consultants. So you're going to want to look and see how how up to date are your technical skills. You may be the absolute best person in the world in a particular technology, but if there's only 4 or 5 organizations in the world that use that technology, your marketability is going to be somewhat difficult. So you want to gauge how your technical skills are and how widespread the demand for those technical skills are. Fortunately, if you're in the Microsoft SQL Server world, Microsoft SQL Server is being used the world over and is very widely adopted within most or many localities. So that'll be a benefit to you. The next question is, what will the market bear for your skills? And so as a consultant, realistically, there's a maximum amount that you'll be able to make. There is the number of hours in the day that you're willing to work, whether that's 8 hours a day or 10 hours or 12 or 16 hours a day or just 3 hours a day. There's only so many hours a day that you can work, and there's only a certain amount that the market will bear. Now, for an established industry leader, that market rate may be much higher than it is for someone who's fairly novice in the industry, but still there's only so much that anybody can charge. And so when you multiply the hourly rate times the number of hours in the day that you're willing or capable of working, that's going to be your maximum amount of income for that day. Is that enough to sustain the lifestyle that you want to have? Some other things you'll need to consider is, do you have sufficient contacts in the industry? Now, you don't have to know everybody and know everything, but it is going to be beneficial if you have reached out and started building your network. And I don't mean this in a typical rubbing elbows at the Chamber of Commerce events. Nothing wrong with that, but what you want to be able to do is truly know and truly be able to reach out and communicate with on an effective level those in the industry, both those that are potential customers or clients and those who may be clients you may become a client of them. The final thing is, on this bullet point, is you're going to need to evaluate your soft skills. Unfortunately, there are a lot of highly technical, highly qualified people who are incredibly bright with the technology, But being a consultant does require that you have a certain set of or certain level of soft skills available to you. Can you effectively communicate with others? Can you easily listen to someone and make them feel like they've been heard, and then maybe translate that information from the client's from an end user's perspective to someone in a highly technical capacity? Are you comfortable with sitting down with a CEO of a major organization? And can you also sit down to an end user, maybe a data entry person at an organization? Are you comfortable talking with different people? I would definitely encourage you to consider reaching out and strengthening that area of yourself. Some of us tend to be very bent on having great soft skills seemingly naturally. Others may not be so, and I encourage you to reach and consider using the same techniques that you have used to become very good at your technical skills, and use those same approaches to becoming very good in your soft skills as well. Now, considering also then how you're positioned within the IT world, you may want to consider taking and looking at passing some of the certification exams. Pardon me. Certification exams don't necessarily mean that you're an expert in that area. Really, they mean that you were able to answer a set of questions on that given day the way that the test creators deem to be correct. But it certainly can help you differentiate yourself. Be good, perhaps, to learn some complementary skills and maybe even some completely different skills. You know, if you are an expert in database design, perhaps it may be good to learn a little bit about a front-end development or something else. And then you can also begin expanding your horizons by doing some volunteer work for your church or your scout organization or some other nonprofit, so that you can gain some more experience. Now, the specifics of opening up your business may vary a little bit by state or even country, but generally speaking, what I found to be the appropriate order of steps is approaching your state and checking with your Secretary of State and filing a business with them. What that'll allow you to do is they will typically give you some sort of number that will identify your organization within the state. You can then use that number when you file the federal government for an FEIN, or Federal Employer Identification Number, which would be a good thing to have even if you don't immediately plan to have employees. That's essentially like a Social Security number for your business. It uniquely identifies your business. You'll then need probably the Secretary of State number also when you contact your city and county agencies. They're going to ask what your Secretary of State number is, and you'll be able to supply that. Same's true for any checking accounts, banking accounts that you may open with financial institutions. They're going to want to know either your Secretary of State number or your federal ID number before they open up the business account. You'll also then want to begin thinking about your presence from a marketing perspective, creating your website, creating some business cards, creating some graphics that represent you as an organization. Now, this can be a lot of fun, particularly if you're a creative person. If you're not so creative, then I encourage you to consider, spending a little bit of money and getting someone to help you design this. You can go with some marketing type companies. They'll typically charge a lot more than, say, someone else who may be just a friend of a friend. But nevertheless, I would encourage you to spend just a little bit and get a good professional look to your business presence. You can also, at this point, begin doing some side work. Again, volunteer for charitable organizations. You could also start doing work for maybe your wife's company or things like that. Just start doing things on the side for friends and family. Now, at some point, at this point, you're still working full-time, or you haven't made the leap completely to consulting. But at this time, you may want to consider working with recruiters, also known as headhunters in some regions. Essentially, a recruiter can help you as you transition from being a full-time employee to becoming a full-time consultant by doing a couple of things for you. One, they typically already have contacts and relationships with a number of businesses out there. They know which businesses in your community, in your city, use Microsoft SQL Server as an example. They know which ones don't. They know the Oracle shops and the Informix shops and the Sybase shops and so forth. So they'll be able to help talk to the right people. They'll also be able to help you with the financial aspect of it. For example, a recruiter, if you go to work as a contractor for them, will pay you regardless of whether or not and when they get paid. So they will pay you every week for the number of hours, or weekly, monthly, or whatever the arrangement is, for the number of hours that you've worked during that period. They're going to be the ones who actually take care of handling the float. So they may pay you for the prior 2 weeks, but it may take them 2 months to get paid from that corporation, the client. So as an individual, you may not be able to handle that float, but so they will provide that buffer, that insulation between when the company is invoiced and when you get paid. Working with recruiters also allows you to have exposure to a wide number of types of environments. Some may be much more rigid and formal. Others may be much more laid back and casual. And having those experiences in different organizations will help you to gain the knowledge to be a better consultant as you go and work with different organizations. Now, when you work with recruiters, I'd encourage you to be selective with them. When you have a discussion or, quote, interview with them, they're going to ask you for a number of things. They're going to ask you about salary requirements, hourly requirements. They're going to ask you for references and about your technical skills and such. I think you should do the same thing to them. Ask for the name of 3 consultants that they have working for them. Talk to those people and find out whether or not they believe that they are being paid fairly compared to what they're being billed at. Talk to them to find out if they've been treated fairly or if they've been misrepresented, if the recruiter seems to know what they're doing and is respected in the industry. So ask them, check their references, make sure you're comfortable working with that company. You can also work with them generally under several different scenarios. Typically, you can be a full-time employee with benefits of a recruiting company. You can be a full-time employee without benefits, meaning you simply get a straight hourly rate with no holidays, no vacation time, no health insurance or anything like that. And at some point, you'll be able to become a 1099 contractor with them. Typically, there's some requirements ahead of time, like most of them want some sort of umbrella, $1 or $2 million umbrella policy that you must have or something like that. I generally recommend to people to start as a full-time employee of the recruiter without benefits. Typically, by the time you earn enough to accrue you spend enough time with an organization, with a recruiter to accrue benefits, you're typically become obsolete in that job, and they may drop you, or that you may be, quote, on the bench. And so I don't really recommend the benefit route. Go without benefits if possible. As you sign this, though, as you begin working with a recruiter, make sure you read the contract. Particularly beware of the non-competes. Frequently, the non-competes clause in the recruiter's agreement are unbelievably strict, probably unenforceably strict. Usually it says something along the lines of you cannot go to work for any company that they have done business with or have planned to do business with in the past. Well, who have they not planned to do business with? That's everybody in 500 miles of here. So and they typically ask for a 2-year to 5-year period on that. Scratch through all of that and rewrite in there. This is just like a home loan or any other contract. It's completely negotiable. Scratch through the stuff you don't like. I never sign an agreement for more than 12 months. 12 months is plenty in length. I also would scratch through and say only the people you introduce me to. If you've got a relationship with company X, but you haven't introduced me to company X, there's no reason why I can't approach them independent of you. If you've introduced me to company Y, then yes, I should have a non-compete with that company. As you begin growing your business, doing more and more stuff on the side, while you're working with recruiters, you can begin finding your own clients and then discuss an exit strategy for yourself from the recruiters. So if you found a client that you really like, they like you, there's nothing at all immoral or unethical about going to the client and saying, look, I'd really like to do work for you directly without the recruiter being involved. But to do that, we need to figure out how to make that beneficial for everyone. And so begin talking about a buyout clause or a buyout from your contract. And essentially what that will mean is if you're being paid a certain amount from your recruiter and your recruiter's charging a higher amount to the client, you can get paid somewhere in between. But in order for that to happen, that client's going to need to buy out your contract from the recruiter. And so for typically a few $1,000s, they may be able to do that. As you create your company image, consider reaching out and asking other people you trust. Find about 6, 7, 8 different people that you've either done work for on the side, your family or friends, other consultants, people you admire and have a good relationship with. Ask them about the company name that you're choosing. Ask them about the logo. Ask them their impressions on the color scheme and everything else before you create any of that. As an example, my company, WebTech Solutions, I came up with about 6 different names that I liked. This is the one that I like the least, oddly enough, but I asked a number of people, probably 8 different people, which of those names they liked the best. And almost without exception, they all chose WebTech Solutions. I actually liked that one the least, but went with it simply because that's what the majority of people who I asked and respected at the time said that they liked the best. So I ended up going with it. You want to make sure that you have some information. Having a really poor website out there, or an unprofessionally poor website out there, or a really poor looking business card is actually worse than not having one at all. Now, as you start building a name for yourself, some of the things that you can do, some low-cost ways to get your name out, is first and foremost, the thing that comes to my mind is user groups. Start attending the user groups for the area that you are interested in. If you're a SQL Server developer, consider going to the .NET user group, the SQL Server user group, the Storage Area Network user group, anything that is directly or ancillary to your area of expertise. Consider visiting their user groups. And better yet, begin talking or speaking at their user groups. When you speak, that does a wonderful thing for you. It helps to identify you as a expert when you stand in front of somebody and speak, but it also helps you there's a sense that people get a sense of knowing you. When you're standing in front of 60, 80, 100 people and speaking, or even if it's only 15, they feel like that they've had a one-on-one conversation with you, and they feel like they know you, even though you may not recognize them. So user groups are a great way to get your name out. Technical associations like PASS get involved with PASS as a volunteer. Even non-technical associations go to free seminars that may be offered by your local technology council or chamber of commerce. Get online and start blogging, start getting involved in social media as well. Now, as you begin working with potential clients, several soft skills that you need to be aware of. You are going to need to become a salesperson, and I know a lot of us in the technical industry have not necessarily had great experiences with the salespeople that we've worked with in the past. You're going to have to get over that and actually become a salesperson yourself. And as part of that, I would encourage you to, again, do some reading, do some studying on things like Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Some other areas, some other books and things out there are available as well. You can email me and I'll be glad to share with you some things. But what you want to be aware of is you need to listen to your potential customers or your clients. I did a blog a while back on, before you speak, you should stop, drop, and roll. Stop, meaning don't interrupt them. Let them talk. Even if you know what they're going to say, let them tell it to you. Drop, meaning drop a few clarifying questions back to them. Make sure that you understand what they're saying, and more importantly, make sure they feel like you're understanding. And then roll would be roll back what they said to you. Actually reply back to them and summarize what they've said and what you've heard so that they know that you've gotten it. Then you can begin offering some solutions or insight or guidance. So become an active listener. You also want to avoid free consulting. You want to make sure that you don't have someone who's simply going to you trying to look for free consulting along the way. I remember early on in my career, I had someone who was a client or potential client who called me and the man I worked for at the time in to do a proposal, and we spent a tremendous amount of time and wrote up a very detailed proposal for this organization and never heard back from them until a year later when they called us back in and said, we want to talk to you about that proposal you made. Oh, there's been a few changes in the past year, so we'll need to update you on that. When can you come talk to us? We thought we had finally gotten that deal, only to find out they had taken our original proposal, implemented it themselves, and now they wanted some more free consulting. So really what you want to do is you want to find a way to defer that, and what I do is what I call the general contractor analogy. So when somebody asks for, they spend 20 minutes talking to you, and they ask for a proposal or an estimate after that 20 minutes, you can essentially say that, what I usually do is say that, look, we've spent 20, 30 minutes together, and you've shared a great deal, and I have a good idea about what's going on, but I can't really provide you with a good estimate at this point, because doing so would be like showing a general contractor the outside picture of a house and then asking them how much it would cost to build that house. Well, they don't know if you own the land or not. They don't know how many bedrooms or bathrooms, or whether you have vinyl floors or granite floors, or what kind of countertops you have, how many square feet it is, or anything else. You've only shown them the outside of the building. they cannot give you anything close to a realistic estimate. And the same thing applies when I spend 20 minutes with you. I can't give you I do not have enough information. And so you can use that to help them understand that they should look to help you understand more by agreeing to spend a certain amount of time up front to essentially better define and better understand what the real project is, and then they can make that decision. And you'll be paid for those services along the way. Now, as you get to know other people, there are several different types of people, if you will, that you should get to know. Go to your user groups. I've already mentioned that. Go to your Chamber of Commerce events, anything local like that. Also, your other organizations, Lions Club or the Moose or whatever they are, the Lion, those types of organizations, elk, not moose, sorry. Those types of organizations are a great way to meet people. You also want to get to know your complementary and competing businesses. So if I'm a SQL Server consultant in the Middle Tennessee area, for example, I want to know the other consultants who work with databases in the Middle Tennessee area, because they may have more work that they can do, and they may be willing to send some my way, and conversely, I may send some their way. I also want to know the complementary businesses in my area. If I'm approached to develop an application, and I don't do application development, but I do database design and Transact SQL programming, I may need to know who I can farm out the front-end application work to, and the converse will happen as well. So, some tips for success. I would encourage you to find a mentor or a coach. A mentor is someone you can talk to on a periodic basis, who will help you to be a sounding board to make sure the ideas that you're thinking of are good and sound. Maybe they're a little more seasoned in the industry than you are, things like that. You could also have a coach that maybe you either know someone who will be willing to do it for free, or you pay somebody on a regular basis to help you out and to kind of give you some guidance along the way. Also, make sure you schedule your time wisely. One of the challenges that a lot of people have are keeping. Yes.
Your screen disappeared. Just want to let you know it's not sharing right now.
Not showing at all?
There we go. Now we're back.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Oh, no, it's gone again.
Gone again?
Yeah.
Give me, tell you what, let me have 1 second. I'll try to get back to it. And if that doesn't work, we'll go ahead anyway, since we're running out of time.
Sure. There we go.
You got it?
What about your desktop?
Yeah, my desktop. All right. Let me get the PowerPoint viewer back up. This is a virtual machine that I created not too long ago, and I don't have everything that I normally have installed on it. So for this, I quickly did the PowerPoint viewer. So as this is pulling back up, what I was saying is you want to make sure you can schedule your time wisely. One of the challenges that many of us have is keeping our clients' emergencies and fires from becoming our own emergencies and fires. So, a lot of times when I was early on in my career, I would get a call at, say, 10 o'clock in the morning, and from a client who would say, can you come meet us this afternoon? And I would immediately say, yes, I can. And I would drop what I was doing and spend 30 minutes driving to the client to have a 15-minute meeting with them, and then 30 minutes back to my home office. That was not an efficient use of my time. What I've learned to do is to make sure I schedule, if I'm going to drive into town, I schedule 2 or 3 or 4 meetings throughout the day. I will schedule a 9 o'clock meeting with the client. I'll schedule lunch with somebody else. I'll stop by and visit another client at 1 o'clock, and then on the way back to my home, I'll visit one more client or something like that. You're also going to need to learn to sleep well at night. Don't worry. Don't spend time worrying about the things that you can't control. Plan and do the best you can, and learn to accept those things that you can't control. You want to be an advocate for your client. You want to do the best job you can for your client. You don't want to do things that would allow. You don't want to, for example, milk a project or recommend things that are not in your client's best interest. What I have found is if you plan your own obsolescence and you do a good job, and you come to your client and say, yes, doing this implementation would mean the contract's extended for 6 months, but I believe that there's a better way that you could do this by buying this off-the-shelf package and customizing it or something like that. They will learn to trust you and know that your word is good and know that the work is good, and they will find ways to keep you busy, or they will introduce you to other business contacts that they have. You definitely want to communicate well. You want not only informal communications like written agreements or contracts. You need to spell those things out, what's expected and what's not expected behavior. But you also want to do it on an informal basis. You want to make sure that you reply to emails in a timely manner. You want to make sure you return telephone calls in a timely manner, so that you can make sure that you avoid any sort of misunderstandings. Some other things that you may want to think about, some tips for success, is don't expect to close every project or prospect. I remember early on in my career, I would hear about 2 or 3 different prospects, 2 or 3 different potential clients at any one time, and I'd be hesitant to follow up on any of those because I was already had a proposal out to a potential client. And so I wouldn't aggressively follow the other potential clients. And that was a mistake because you don't have, just because you've made a proposal doesn't mean that it will be accepted. So recognize that it's a good problem to have if you have too many clients to have as opposed to not enough clients. Don't work for people that you don't like. Be willing to fire your clients if necessary. An important piece here is don't neglect improving your soft skills. As I mentioned before, most of us are really adept at technical stuff, but we want to make sure that we use the same techniques that we use to become really good technicians, to become much improved in our soft skill areas. I don't know how many of you may know Kevin Klein, but he and I have created actually a full day seminar on the things that help, for example, highly technical people, but to become good managers, because the same set of skills that got you to become a manager are not the same set of skills that will allow you to excel in that role. And the same is true in the consulting world. And make sure you don't just take it easy and drift. Make sure that you set measurable and attainable goals. Make sure you have some foresight into where you want to be when a year from now, 5 years from now, and so forth. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. I think there are, let's see here. We have a couple of questions. Feel free to add to those in your Q&A section there. We have Paul says, hello, Joe. Here's a scenario. I charge an hourly rate. I promise them code. They agree the code would be good for them. My code is pre-written. It took me 3 hours to write it, and it's excellent code. I copy and paste it and give them the code. The code is originally mine. You cannot find this code on the internet. Can I charge them for 3 hours? This happened to me, and they complained. How can I convince them that it is appropriate to charge them for 3 hours? Okay. Well, Paul, you do bring up a very interesting and good point. Earlier, when I said that there's really a maximum amount of money that a consultant can make, and that is the hourly rate that the market will bear times the number of hours that he has worked. Okay, so if the hourly rate in your area is using round figures is $100 an hour, and you're willing to work 8 hours a day, then your maximum daily rate is going to be $800. However, there are some ways around that, and you've hit on one of them, and that is if rather than selling your hourly rate, you sell a solution, then you can get around that. So if you know that you have written code in the past that you can repurpose and use again, then you can sell them that solution. I would be upfront with them that what you are selling is not 3 hours of your time, but you are selling them a solution. So if you can do something that would take them 8 hours to do, and you can do it in 1 hour because of tools that you've developed along the way, there's nothing at all wrong with that. However, I would encourage you to be upfront with them on that and say, at the end of this agreement, I will have this done for you, rather than saying, I will sell you 3 or 8 hours of my time. Let's see. Matt says, I'm assuming that if you worked full-time without benefits, you would be getting a higher pay. Right, yeah. When you're working with a recruiter or a headhunter, they will typically pay you a certain rate and provide you some benefits with that, which would include holiday pay, and after so many months or years of service with them, they will pay you, even some vacation time or something like that. Again, typically, I don't think that that's worth it. Typically, what's better is if you forego all the benefits and get a higher hourly rate, and then just be aware that you're not going to have any vacation time or holiday time. So when it comes to a holiday, you're only going to be working 32 hours that week instead of the typical 40. Wayne says, I find recruiters want full-time only. Advice on how to find side and part-time. You're absolutely right. Most recruiters and most companies only want to hire a consultant on a full-time basis, but there are some who are willing to look at part-time or even off-hours type work. Usually those are for people who are providing mentoring type services, where you come in and help some of their IT folks out on for maybe a 1 day a week or something like that. Or they need somebody 20 hours a week, but to kind of help with ongoing project maintenance or code maintenance or something like that. Speak to a number of different recruiters about that. Let them know that that's what you're interested in, and hopefully, casting a wider net will help out in that respect. Let's see. Angel's question is, would offering sample apps with client data be considered free consulting? This has worked for me to close a couple of deals with clients. If so, what alternative methods can I use to show possible solutions to non-technical folks? So, sample apps with client data be considered free consulting? I don't think so. I think what you want to be aware of or cautious about is, when you're a consultant, you're paid for the knowledge that you have and then applying that knowledge. And if you are in a situation where a deal has not been reached and they are not paying you and you're imparting knowledge to them, or you're making changes on their systems, then essentially you're getting free consulting. And what I would be cautious of is doing that, and and my point really is to get them to a point where, because I certainly understand clients or potential clients who are a little bit hesitant for you to say, I don't know how long this is going to take, but I can help you. They're going to be hesitant to that. because they don't know if they're getting into a 6-month agreement with you or a 6-year agreement with you, if this is going to cost them $10,000 or $110,000. And so by convincing them that it is in everyone's best interest to have a better estimate than you could give them after a 30-minute brief discussion, what I try to do is say, look, let's spend the next, let's write an agreement, and I will spend 40 hours sitting down with you, examining what the business requirements are. I will then write a document to describe what those business requirements are. I will then also include what I believe would be the best route to get there, or a response to those requirements, and how to implement that. And at the end of those 40 hours, you will have this documentation. And you can do one of 3 things with it. You can either look at it and say, Joe, this is great. Would love for you to implement this. Or you can say, Joe, this is great. We can take it from here. Thanks for your time. Or they could say, wow, this is a whole lot of money. We had no idea it was going to be this expensive. That money up front was well spent in all 3 of those cases. They've already, if they want me to do it, I've got a running start on it, and they've paid for that running start, and compensated me for it, and that's great. If they decide that they can do it themselves, essentially what they've done is they've hired me as a technical expert or business expert to look at and document the way it should be implemented, and now they can find a lower cost alternative to implementing that. Or if it is a whole lot better for them to know up front that this is going to cost $110,000 to implement, and their budget is $5,000, they would rather spend $1,000 up front to know that it's not worth their pursuing. Let's see, Wayne. Beyond or using what you have outlined, how did you land your last client? You know, one of the things I didn't mention on there is word of mouth is an incredibly powerful marketing. Over my umpteen-year career as an independent consultant, I have taken out one ad in a business journal, and the cost of that ad but was fairly minimal, and I only got one client from it, and that one client pretty much paid for the cost of that ad. So I haven't really done any marketing. I've been very blessed to have had a set of referrals that keep coming in. The word of mouth marketing has been very good. It's kind of uneasy at times because you can't really control that very well, but I've been very blessed in that way. And that looks like all the questions. Mark, did you have any others?
No, it looks like I covered them all. Sure do appreciate your time, Joe. That was excellent information here. And go ahead.
My contact information was on the PowerPoint slide, and I blogged about it and everything this morning as well. I think that contact information is probably on the SQL Pass site as well. So feel free, if you guys have questions or comments after the fact, would love to hear from you. Just send me a message on Twitter or email, and be glad to talk to you. I appreciate it, guys.
That's great. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your time. And just for folks, put up Joe's blog and Twitter information if you want to get hold of him. The next professional development virtual chapter meeting, we'll be having Don Gabor talking on February 17th at 1 o'clock. And the recording of this event will be available within the next 24 hours. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And again, Joe, thank you for your time.